you notice Conor while the other speakers are speaking, how many times he did a depression trance?
Weight shifts, people.
I have them grab onto their behinds. And I teach the wound care part of the curriculum also, so I make sure that they don't forget to teach that first thing.
I also have a skin graft if they want to see that too on my leg if they're interested.
So if you don't do your depression
Yeah, I'll
trance,
lift my leg up and I'll just pull my pants up or down or whatever, and they can just look at my leg if they want, if they're curious, like show and tell, if they can touch it, all that stuff. So whatever. So hi, I'm Conor. I'm 23 years old, and I had a spinal cord injury on July 23rd, 2014. I was swimming in the ocean and I hit my head in a sandbar and shattered my C5. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions about the injury and the ICU and all that stuff afterwards, but I wanted to talk to all you guys really about the power of positivity and positive thinking when it comes to recovery. And you know, for those of you who are going to venture into the PT world, especially in neuro, you'll be dealing with a lot of freshly injured spinal cord injury patients. And these people, they are vulnerable, they're scared for their life because they can't move, they can't feel anything. I mean, heck, I remember when I got injured, it felt like God ripped the carpet out from underneath me, took a giant dump on the carpet, smeared it all over my life and expected me to clean it up, but I couldn't because my fingers don't work. So, I mean, so you can imagine how hard it is. But all kidding aside, these people are scared and they're vulnerable and they're desperate for any piece of hope and of good news. And one thing that they're going to ask you during the first beginning sessions with them is that they're going to ask you, am I going to walk again? Am I going to make a full recovery? And it puts you guys in a very uncomfortable and awkward situation because you don't know. And, you know, and they, of course, don't know either. But because you guys don't know, the last thing you should ever say to these patients is no. And even I don't know can kind of lead to no. And instead, some methods that really kind of helped me get through this was that I would put the questions, well, the answers in them. So a couple things that I would tell them if they asked me that question if I was in your shoes would be, you know, you're only limited by what you believe. And you are the maker of your own destiny. No one around you can make you walk by yourself. Exactly what he said over there. You are the maker of your own destiny, and you are only limited by what you believe. And with that said, a second piece is that our bodies are always talking to us. I don't know if you guys notice this, but our bodies are always whispering. They're always giving us a message, a sign of something. And so one of my spiritual teachers, who's actually here with me in the room, she's over there, and she told me, you know, because I asked her the same question, I'm like, am I gonna walk? And she said to me, well, you need to take a step back, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just listen to what your body is telling you. And I did that, and my body is telling me it's gonna be fine. My body's telling me I'm gonna walk again. It's gonna take time and a lot of hard work, but it's gonna happen. And I think, you know, if you put it on them to make those answers for themselves, it takes the pressure off of you. And on top of that, it kind of helps them open up a whole new world of mind-body connection and positive thinking. And that's going to be huge, especially in the very beginning stages of recovery. Because, like he said over there, I'm so sorry, what is your name again?
Bill.
Bill, okay. Look what Bill said, it's all psychological too. And you guys will also be these psychologists that are going to be helping these people set up the foundation for a robust recovery. So it is vital that you guys are positive and you guys give hope. And so with that said, after my treatment at ICU, I was flown to Craig Hospital on a med jet. And I was inpatient there for about a couple months, and then afterwards I was an outpatient. I stayed there for about a year doing therapy, working out at this high-tech gym called the Peak Center. I did 5 days a week, 4 hours a day for a year, and you know, the physical therapists there, some were good, they're all great, they're all very knowledgeable, but their approach to the psychology of it, some were terrible. And I was one of the people that got grouped with the PTs that weren't very supportive. But thankfully for me, I was strong enough mentally where I could focus on myself, and I was strong enough mentally where I wanted to work hard and I wanted to get better. And I didn't let these people's opinions about recovery get into my consciousness. However, there are some days that were easier than others, and on the bad days, their opinions and their ideas of how I would recover would seep in. And it was hard. It was really hard to try and get better when no one else around you was really believing in you. And it's the worst feeling in the world when you believe you can do something but no one else believes you can. And so after Craig Hospital, it was still an amazing experience, and I loved Craig. It's one of the best hospitals in the world for people who are newly paralyzed. I think it's a great place, but you know, they're not really interested in how you recover. They're more like interested in what you can do with what you have at that moment, because they want you to be as independent as possible with the muscle function that you have. So after a year of being in Denver, I moved to Michigan to go to the Barwis Method. It's this amazing place in Michigan, and it's like a boot camp, and they have this great neurological re-engineering program, and they work with spinal cord injuries. And the minute I stepped in there, they're blasting dance music, and you know, everyone was so upbeat and positive. I mean, it was some next level shit. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna walk. I'm like, this is where it's gonna happen. The magic's happening here. And I worked with this PT who did my evaluation. And he was so nice. Like after the evaluation, he said to me, what are some 3 goals that you have that you want to do while you're here? And I said, I want to get my triceps working. I want to get my core to work again. Get my abdomen, my erector spinae, my obliques, and my transverse abdominis, all those muscles to work in unison so I can sit up and be functional. And I want to get my legs firing too. And what he said to me was, let's make it happen. And when he said that, I almost cried, because never in my experience with PTs has someone ever said, let's make it happen. No one ever gave me an excuse as to why I wouldn't be able to do something. And he didn't care what injury level I was. He didn't care what function or what state I came in. Like he said, he told me we're only limited by what we believe. And you know, if you believe that you can walk again, you are going to pound those nerve signals through your damaged area with the spinal cord, and you are going to walk again. And it's going to happen. It's just how the world works. You know, I love this quote. It's a slow and steady, persistent stream of water eventually erodes away the toughest rock. And that is exactly how life works. It's how the world works, and bodies and spinal cords are no exception. So I worked with him for about 8 weeks, and he got my triceps back. And that's why I can do depression lifts today. I have core, and I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress, but I can sit at the edge of a mat and balance myself and kind of move around. I still have a lot of work to do, but my muscles are working together again. And I'm just finally starting to get my legs to join the party. And because I'm an Asia B, I started off as a sensory incomplete, motor complete, but I think I might be an Asia C now. With all my hard work that I've done, I can feel hot and cold. I can feel pain. I can feel pressure. I can feel a fly land on the hairs on my leg. That's how detailed my nerves have kind of refired. And I can start to sweat in my hips and low back and on the inside of my legs. And it's pretty cool. I mean, it's so exciting. It's one of the best gifts in the world is to wake up and see your body coming back. It's truly magical, and it's unbelievable. And so now I go and I work on a Project Walk in Carlsbad. I work there 4 days a week for 3 hours a day, and I do neuroacupuncture on top of that, which kind of helps boost things along. And they've been great. They've adopted the same philosophy that I've had this whole time, and they don't take no for an answer. And they believe that anything can be achieved if you really just set your mind to it. And so tying it back to you, you know, don't underestimate the power of words, because words are very powerful. And some people, you know, are not as, like I know that I'm a very mentally strong person and that's how I've gotten this far. But I know some people are not that strong mentally, and when they have this injury, whatever you say, they're going to believe. So, and your word is gold because you guys are the pros. So you need to be so careful and being sensitive with your words to these people, because if you tell them no, that some might believe you and they won't even bother going to physical therapy. They won't even bother getting up out of bed, and they'll get pressure sores and then they'll die. I mean, it happens. And so, you know, it's like there's so much hope. There's so much hope out there. And another thing with hope is that, you know, you'll be meeting people along the road, other PTs like yourselves and doctors, and they're against this way of thinking because they don't like the idea of false hope. But I don't really believe in false hope, because hope is hope. Hope is what gets me out of bed every day with a caretaker who gets me dressed, and I go to Project Walk and I bust my ass in therapy because I want to become independent one day. That's what hope does. And it doesn't matter what you say, it's just the way it is. And you'll find a lot of that at Craig. And that's the thing, like at Craig, even though they were great PTs and so knowledgeable, they were so afraid to give me any piece of hope because they thought that if it didn't come true, I'd be devastated. It was just a very unusual philosophy that I never really clicked with. And that's why eventually I left and I tried other therapy alternatives. And in this day and age, especially with spinal cord injury, I met so many doctors and neuroscientists and engineers who are working on stem cells, the epidural stimulator, the eDura neural implant, bionic spinal cords. There's so much out there, not yet in the clinics, but in the labs, but there's so much that people are trying to do to fix this injury that now no longer is spinal cord injury going to be a life sentence, as one of the doctors who I met told me. And they're working with epidural stimulators up at UCLA, and that's going to be a huge therapy alternative, which will come in the next couple of years. But anyway, there's so much that's going to change in the next couple of years, and you guys are going to be the future and the first generation to experience regenerative medicine with spinal cord injuries. So instead of you guys doing the traditional, you know, working with a spinal cord injury patient, setting them up the best they can for their life, and then kind of setting them off, you guys eventually will be relearning how to teach these people how to use their bodies and how to become independent again. And it's the most exciting time to live in. And it's just, there's so much hope out there. That's why I struggle so much with negativity, because people who are negative, it's like they have no idea how narrow their minds are and how powerful the human spirit is when you set your mind to something. And so that was my message to you guys, is to give so much hope to people, because it means the world to us when you really believe in us. So, yeah, any questions? I thought I was going to throw up, but thank God I didn't. Anyway, so who has a question? Yes, you.
I'm curious to know how your physical therapist answered when you asked that question.
Like at Craig Hospital, or like now, like when I asked her to walk again. Like, so when I was at Craig initially, so let's see, so my first day at Craig, I got in my hospital room, couldn't move anything, couldn't feel anything. And my physician actually comes in, he's in a chair himself. And I'm like, what are you doing in a chair? Like, shouldn't you be up and walking? Like, don't people walk from this sleep? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why aren't you getting up and walking? And he told me, he was like, you know, I'm really sorry that this happened to you, Connor, but, you know, you're not gonna walk again. And the sooner you accept that, the easier your life will be. And I was like, no. I was like, thank you for playing, but no, that's not me. I don't do that. I walk. I don't like sit in a chair. Sorry, I don't do that. And he was like, well, you're in denial right now, but you'll see what happens. And I was like, fine. And then, so that was one example. And then another example was, you know, I did this study where they get me on a treadmill and they walk my feet, and they did this like exercise study at Craig, and I asked one of the PTs there, and you know, he kind of threw his hands up and he said, you know, I don't know. I've never really seen somebody in your position walk again. And it's just stuff like that. And it's like it cuts you really, because it's just so awful when there's just no hope at all. And so I hope that answers the question. But usually they just say no, or they go, I don't know, probably not. That's typically what PTs say if you ask that question. So anything but that would be fantastic. Another question, or?
Yeah,
Yes.
if I can interject,
Oh, yeah, please.
the neurosurgeons are the ones that are going to tell you you are what you are.
Yeah.
And so we come into this already with somewhat of a bad attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it really is up to you. I mean, I love to hear this story because somebody has to motivate. Not everybody is, you know, gung-ho, I'm going to get better. Somebody has to motivate those patients who don't have, you know, the diligence that a Conor has. And
Or that Bill has.
you guys, you're the front line. You're the ones that have to say, you know, let's work on this. I think we can do something here. Or you're only limited by your own challenges. You know, go make it happen.
Wait, you got a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you said that initially you didn't have movement of your upper limbs either.
All I could do was this, and I could pronate like this. And now I can do that with both hands. And I mean, I have my shoulders, full strength, triceps, they're like a level grade 3. They start off at 0. And the only thing I'm waiting for is my fingers. And actually my right thumb is starting to come back. So it's pretty cool. So yes, and I couldn't feel anything either.
How long was it until you saw like, any progress or improvement from that?
Well, probably about 2 weeks until I started to feel something, and it was very faint. It was very different. And now when like, you know, I put my hands to my knees or I rest against something, it feels pretty normal. But and actually, it's interesting because my neurosurgeon, my very last day at ICU, my neurosurgeon came in and he squeezed my toe, and he's like, "Can you feel that?" And I said, "Yeah, I can." And I said, "It's faint, but I can feel it." And he laughed and he said, "You'll be fine." He's like, "You'll be fine." And he walked out. That was the very last time I ever heard or spoke to him. And it's that all it takes is that much spark of fuel to a fire that can keep someone going this whole time. It's that, I mean, it makes that much of a difference. And so I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Yes.
What kind of exercises do you do for the lower extremities?
So at Project Walk, where I'm currently at, I do this thing called ANSR for the very first hour, and they do stretches and reflexes on a mat. And what that's supposed to do is that it kind of activates those spasms, as what Bill was talking about. And what they believe is that spasms are actually your muscles below your level of injury trying to talk to you, but there's a miscommunication, there's a misfire. So like, for example, they're gonna straighten out your leg, they're gonna bring it up, and you're gonna use your hip flexor and your hamstring to bend your leg towards your chest, and you're focusing on that movement too. And what it does is actually it's reconnecting and rewiring those axons and neurons around the injury site. And that's what their philosophy is doing. And I think it's working. It's a slow process, but I mean, it works. I've definitely seen a lot of improvement from it, definitely. And then, so that's the first hour, and then I go on the power plate, and I bear full body weight, and I do that for like a half hour. I do leg presses on a total gym, and I use FES stim. So I'm getting the movement of pushing up, of extending my legs, and it's firing the right muscles so it prevents them atrophying. And then, you know, I can do like, I do core work while I stand up. They kind of block my legs out, but I'm standing up, so I'm bearing my own weight, and then I'm doing core work where, you know, like I'm twisting my torso and pushing my arms out in front of me and doing like back extensions and, let's see, and then for legs, I do the robo. I get on a treadmill get in a harness, and I walk for like 45 minutes, and supposedly, what studies have shown is that between your T12 and L1 vertebrae, there is a very dense nerve circuitry, and it's the walking circuitry. So when you walk, you stand up and you just start taking your first step, and then that you spark that loop, and it goes in a loop, because you're not thinking like quad lift, hamstring extend. You're not thinking like each and every movement. You're just walking. And so what the robo is doing is that it's kind of reactivating and re-exciting that circuitry so you can help connect to it better. So those are kind of things that I do at Project Walk to stimulate the legs. Yeah.
Does it feel good to move when you feel the FES and the?
Feels great.
doing
Feels
the
like
presses?
normal. Feels like normal muscle contractions. It's great because I don't have osteoporosis. I actually got the news back from my doctor last week. I reversed it from all the therapy that I've been doing, and one doctor told me that was not going to be possible. So yeah, and so it's just therapy is so important, especially with post-injury, because you got to keep your body in shape. You got to keep your body in the perfect conditions. So when that effective treatment comes along, your body is ready for it. Yes.
So when you're on the treadmill, do you have to use braces for your feet or?
No, that's a great question. So I'm on the treadmill, and there's two men on either side, so each guy has got a leg. And so I'm focusing on like hip flexor up, hamstring extend. So I'm always thinking about each movement of walking. And they do it for about like intervals of 3 minutes, and then we pause for a minute, and they switch sides. They go for another. Right, exactly. Yeah, so it's that natural gait pattern that they're trying to train my body to kind of pick up and be like, oh, I know what that is. Let me connect and do it. Yeah.
If you remember the video that we saw in class, body weight support, the young snowboarder who was on the treadmill, and a therapist on each side facilitating with normal gait velocity, and that kind of triggers the nervous system.
Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is that the spinal cord, like the brain, is a very smart, it's an organ, or like whatever you classify the spinal cord as. It's a very smart part of the body. It can relearn how things work. It stores memory, and all it is that it just needs to get ignited. It needs just to get excited through stimulus for the nerves to wake up and relearn how to work. And it's sort of this new therapy that's been going on the past couple of years, but they've been seeing lots of progress. And I've met quads who have been injured like 7, 10 years out, kind of like Bill, and they're walking like you can't even tell. And what they tell me is just keep hustling, keep working. Don't take no for an answer. Our bodies will learn how to adjust, and they will get better. Yeah. Yes?
Do you have any tone or spasticity?
Yes, I do. I have spasticity in my hamstrings because I'm always sitting. So usually when I try and like extend my legs, they kind of lock out. But to me, it kind of feels good because it feels like a stretch, And for me, my spasticity, it kind of helps me because I can like turn over when I need to in bed. It kind of it can promote blood flow and like circulation up throughout the body. So, and I get spasms in my legs, but they're not very severe. They're typically moderate. Yeah, I like my spasms.
Your spasms are just in your legs?
Yes, they are.
Tone and spasticity, again, it's all on how you look at life. Tone and spasticity is really a good thing if you've had a spinal cord injury, because that means you're not a central cord complete. But I too have spasms. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and my entire body will go into a 5-second spasm. Everything just locks up and I literally can't move. It doesn't feel bad. It just happens.
If I try and move, even like the slightest, like if I'm like laying down and I try like to reach over and grab my water and bring it back, like my whole legs will just like tense up and my knees will like come to my chest, and yeah. So it's very sensitive to like movement, especially when it's been idle for like a couple hours, like during sleep. And I try and move, then they'll spasm, yeah. And then they'll calm down again. So,
Yep.
But yeah, it's interesting. But to me, I hear people that like it hurts really bad. They're on terrible medications that are like hindering their ability to recover because they're just like numbing their muscles. It's a drug called baclofen, and it's I know some people really need it, which is unfortunate, but it doesn't do us any favor. It doesn't do people any favors because you're just quieting that muscle down. And so thankfully I've never had that issue. I never had to take baclofen, and I don't have any nerve pain, which is great. But yeah, I do have spasms. Absolutely.
And you all are not going to be the prescribers, but you're going to have to deal with people who are taking certain drugs. I took a lot of baclofen early on. I actually was on a 30 microgram Duragesic patch, which is basically morphine. That was a 3-day patch that I wore during the period that I was in therapy, and for another maybe 6 months. And I just said, I'm not doing this anymore. And I basically, over a period of 2 weeks, stopped cold turkey. I have nerve pain, which is, again, a good thing because that means at least I have nerves to work with. And I take a drug called Lyrica for the nerve pain. But I take a very, very low dose, and I take less than what's prescribed. Do not take the baclofen anymore. I agree with Conor. That's it, on the one hand, it helps with the tone and the spasticity. On the other, it's like an alcohol or a drug. It just kind of makes you limp, and not only does it take away the physical attributes, but it also affects the brain. And so, you're going to want to tell your people, irrespective of what the doctor prescribes, limit that stuff to the bare minimum.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit about the emotional component to adjusting afterwards. Did you need to see like a therapist, or did you have any sort of like psych counseling?
Actually, that's a great question because when I was at Craig, well, actually, let me back up. So when I was in ICU, when my neurosurgeon told me I was gonna be fine, that's all I really needed, and I felt amazing, I felt great. And once I got to Craig, and I noticed a lot of people around me were in wheelchairs, I was like, it was starting to hit me, and I was like, oh my God, this is intense. And that's when it really started to hit me. And then at Craig, you have a team, and you're assigned like a PT, an OT, a physician, a nutritionist, and you're also assigned a psychologist. And so at the beginning, I actually tried to avoid the psychologist because I didn't want to talk to her. I just felt like I was gonna be fine, and like I thought she was kind of annoying. Initially, she was always trying to like chase me down. I just like didn't want to talk. I wanted to plead the fifth. I had nothing to say. And but then after a while, I actually like opened up to her, and she gave me some good pointers. And so, for me, to answer your question, like I was kind of like my own psychologist, and I just kept telling myself over and over again, I'm gonna be fine. And but I do know that a lot of people do need psychologists, but adjusting to a spinal cord injury was huge because I would think to myself, especially in the beginning, oh well, just a month ago I was up and walking, and now I can't do any of that. And it's just kind of like a mind trip because it's just a completely weird, surreal thing that was going on, and no one around me could relate to it except people who were in my shoes, and not even because everyone's injury is so different. So, in that case, I really did feel alone because as much as my family and my friends wanted to help and be there for me, they didn't know what I was going through. They didn't know what to do, what to say, how to handle me, and they didn't know the experience, and so that part was kind of lonely. But I adapted. Absolutely.
Conor is the one in a million, but let me tell you that when people have a traumatic injury, they have anger issues, and you need to learn to deal with it. And I'm going to give you the classic example. When I was transferred to Casa Colina, and when I was evaluated, this wonderful lady said, you're going to get 6 hours of occupational and physical therapy a day. And so my first day I go into the room and I look at the schedule, and sure enough, I've got 5 hours of occupational and physical therapy, and then I had to meet with this psychologist. And I did, and he evaluated me, and I thought, okay, this is a one-time deal. Second day, I look at my schedule, there he is again. Right? And everybody had 1 hour of either a kind of a class, it was really kind of a classroom setting, but it was a psychology. needless to say, I had a little bit of an anger issue. And so, by the third day, I got to the head psychologist and she evaluated me, and I went off and I went into the office and I said, when I was evaluated to come out here, I was promised 6 hours of physical and occupational therapy, right? I want my 6 hours of therapy. You're not gonna give me 6 hours of physical and occupational therapy. Call my wife and move me out of here. Well, I think that I was the only one out at Casa Colina that got 6 hours of physical and occupational therapy. But if that doesn't show you that a spinal cord patient has anger issues, nothing will. So you have to deal with that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that people aren't angry, and you know, like I've had bad days too, and but you know, yes, anger is a huge part of recovery because you need to, in a way, get used to, temporarily get used to, because I don't like it being a permanent thing, get used to this. You have to temporarily get used to your new situation. And yeah, I mean, I've gotten angry, but I've never been aggressive, but I've gotten like just so angry I just wanted to scream. And like not every day was sunshine and rainbows, although it seems like it is for me, but it's not. But yeah, you have good days and you have bad days. And the bad days can seem like the lowest of lows, and there's no one, like you feel like you're just never gonna get there. And then some days you wake up and you feel like I got this. And so it depends. And I still experience this too, absolutely.
And ladies and gentlemen, my future colleagues, from a therapist who's been there to the point of burnout, taking their patients home with them. You need to take care of yourselves as you're taking care of patients in recovery. So make sure through whatever job you take after school, especially your first couple of years, that's when you're most vulnerable, is to do your own self-care. Do what floats your boat. Go out and surf. Go ride your bike. Dance. I dance. When I dance, I leave everything else behind. I leave you all behind. I don't know you when I'm dancing. So you have to do what it is that makes you healthy, makes you well, because you can't bring your best self to your patient. And if you have to, I have, and I still do, when I'm dealing with a patient who is emotionally strenuous for me to care for, I button my lab coat. It's my separation. This is me. This is my emotional barrier. So I can care for this other person without taking on their anger, taking on their fears, taking on their problems. I'm going to help them with it. And that's how you can be most effective, is to stay well yourselves. Can't take it home.
And I think that's a really good point too. Because like I witness this too, like with patients to PTs. You know, like of course, like I say, you know, be positive and be their cheerleader and help them rise up. Absolutely. And like Bill's saying, like you need to be there to help support and motivate them. That's very important. But at the end of the day, if that person, no matter, despite your hard work, if that person isn't interested and still doesn't want to work hard despite your efforts to change his or her mind, you have to know when to just put your hands up and say, like you have to know when to distance yourself, because you have to take care of yourself, because it can be a very taxing, emotionally taxing job to take care of people with spinal cord injuries. And you know, you'll deal with people like me, and you'll deal with people like Bill, and then you'll deal with people that need the help, and they just need to have the right guidance to see the light. And you'll see some people that just don't care at all, and it doesn't matter what, they just don't want to recover, or they just don't really have the energy to. And you have to say, okay, you know, there's only so much you can do. It has to come from them at the end of the day. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Thank you. Does anybody